Today is my first week talking about marriage. I'm going to be kind of resonating there in that topic for the next couple of weeks on the blog. And I guess we're starting this week, so not before we get started, but I want to start with this really foundational concept. I think is probably the most important thing in a marriage, in a good marriage covenant. It's really the topic of personal responsibility. Really understanding that you choose who you are, which means that anytime we have an emotion, anytime we speak, anytime we take an action, we are choosing that response. We get to choose that. And so living from a place of looking at ourselves first, looking in the mirror first, taking those emotions to Jesus first, really thinking through what's the best way to interact with my spouse in this situation. And I think one of the ways that we start doing that is really focusing on the fact that sin is sin. Not comparing mistakes, not comparing failures, not comparing sin. And the reason being is that the Bible is very clear that sin is sin, right? And we as human flesh, I think, tend to categorize sin in this kind of hierarchy of degree, right? And that is just not a biblical principle. The Bible labels a sin of addiction to control just as toxic as the addiction to pornography or a substance, right? And so in someone's life, we might see striving and controlling and trying to become something for Jesus even, right? It looks good. But if it's not done in a way of surrender and relationship with Jesus, it can be just as toxic and just as numbing of those deeper rooted emotions than any other addiction. Because every single one of us has a hole in our souls the size of God, and He wants to fill that. He wants intimacy with us. He wants that time with us. He wants relationship with us. And addictions are just really the manifestation of filling that hole with something other than Him. And that's really the definition of sin, right? It's that pride of wanting to have something above God, wanting to be something above God, wanting to not need God. And so I think it's really important that we kind of take inventory of that in our own lives. We really pay attention to how can I love more like Jesus, and taking accountability for our own responses, our own actions in every moment of saying, okay, Lord, how do you want me to respond here? What's happening here? What is my spouse feeling? What are they thinking? What is this about? Is it really about me? Is it really about this situation? Is there something else going on here? How can I respond the way that you would have me respond? And when we do that, we leave so much more space for the Holy Spirit. And it allows so much healing in ourselves. It allows so much healing in our spouse, and allows that covenant to become even stronger and even more purposeful and even more impactful for the kingdom. And I think that's why we see so much opposition to this, right? So much division, so much attack of the enemy trying to separate us and divide us. And he's here to seek, kill, and destroy, right? And so it's such a powerful counteraction to that war on marriage, to say, okay, I'm going to pause here, and I'm just going to take this moment to see, how can I love and serve my spouse in this place? How can I show up like Jesus in this moment in time? And the more we do that, the easier it becomes to do, because we become more Christ-like. And the more that we practice that, the more we will see our spouse really grow into the person that God says they are. And I think that's such a powerful thing to remember, is that we have this ability within ourselves as the other half of a covenant to really be able to touch the deepest spaces within our spouse. And that comes with such a responsibility, because it means we have the power to build them up in the best way, but we also have the power to tear them down, because we know their weaknesses best, we know their fears best, we know their struggles best, we know who they are in the most detailed ways. And so it's such a beautiful thing when we choose every single day to say, Lord, use me to love this person well, and show me how I can be who you made me to be here. So I just wanted to start with that before we build on this topic of marriage in the next couple of weeks.